So I have a question. I just want to do an example. So I want to make sure that maybe it'll help somebody else. So I go out and I list 123 East Main Street in Lincoln tonight. And my date on my contract is 12/16 on my exclusive right to sell contract. And I apologize because I'm shuffling all these papers.
That's right.
The property's listed this evening. I am there. I put the sign in the yard. How many days do I have to get it, or hours, whatever it is, to get it into the MLS and syndicated?
1 business day if you advertise.
Yeah. Did you hear that? 1 business day if you advertise.
You market the property.
If you do it on Friday, you have Monday, because you, after say 5 o'clock or anytime after Friday, you have 1 full business day, which would be Monday.
Okay.
Once the sign's in the yard.
That didn't trip me up. That surprised me. That answer did. All
I'm
right.
sorry?
No, I said that answer surprised me, so it kind of tripped me up a little bit.
What was you thinking?
My 2 days starts as soon as I put the sign in the yard, or my day starts as soon as I put the sign in the yard.
But that's a violation of NAR's
Clear
clear cooperation
yeah.
8.0 policy.
Yeah, the RMLS rules say you have 2 business days to enter your listing into the MLS unless you advertise or put a sign in the yard, and then you have 1 business day to enter that listing into the MLS, and that's mandated.
So when I leave, so I've driven out to Timbuktu and I take everything with me. I know I'm getting the listing, and I put the sign in the yard when I leave.
Yes. 24 hours.
If it's Friday night, I have until Monday to
Correct.
Correct.
But let's just pretend like it's Monday and you've just done that.
Well, but hold on. Let's pretend that I show it Saturday morning. I sell it before my competitor.
There's absolutely no problem with that at all.
I'm just asking. I just want to make that question.
No, you've got a signed listing agreement. You got even a sign in the yard. You just don't have it in the MLS. You're still within your time frame.
It needs to go in Monday though.
Yeah, you better get it in there Monday. Yeah, sure. But heck, we all have that. I mean, hell, what realtor hasn't pushed a sign in the yard and you're driving away and the phone doesn't ring and said, "Hey, I just saw that sign." Yeah. You turn around, sell the house. I mean, that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So with technology today, I take a picture and I post it on Facebook that I just listed it. That's marketing, right?
Yep.
So can I market it even though it's not been syndicated?
1 business.
Yeah,
One,
you still have 1 business day
Yeah.
from the day you market it, otherwise 2.
Okay, I'm bringing.
Those are good questions. I agree.
And please understand, I mean, people are going to get aggravated. I wear 2 different hats. So the coming soon in one market is totally different than what you guys do. And so that's why I'm asking the questions, because it helps me in the long run understand. So,
Well, the coming soon, it shouldn't be different in different markets now, because this is handed down from NAR. This is not the capital area.
Yeah, we didn't make this up.
This was out of our hands. This is to remedy all the differences and the confusion to the public that was going on. They stepped in and said, no more.
Yeah,
This
leveling
is
the
new to us
playing
since
field.
Yeah.
last November when NAR approved that clear cooperation policy. That's when this came about.
We're still getting used to it ourselves.
yeah.
But now on the full notice of exception, Kathy alluded to the fact that on the coming soon, your days on the market don't start kicking in until the activation date. So the day that it goes live on the coming soon, that's day 1. On the full notice of exception, if the one that's more really just an exclusive, office exclusive agreement, as soon as it goes active, it retroactively goes back to the effective date of the contract and counts the days from there forward. So you may have it exclusive for 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever. And the minute it goes active, it's a 15 or 30 day, it's going to show it's been on the market that long.
So I know it'll be in the rest of the rules, but a coming when you get that coming soon because you're waiting on even photography or.
Mhm. Yeah, the problem with the coming soon thing is just, you try to get a date that'll get everything done, and then the plumber gets delayed or the carpet guy gets delayed, things happen. So you've set this date out there, and it's kind of concrete. So you can't move that. It's not a moving target. That's a date that's got to stick.
No,
You can move it within that 30 days.
yeah, you can move it up,
Can't
But you
go-
can't go
yeah.
beyond. So-
right.
Like if you say it's going to go active on the 5th, and then things are going to be, say you list it on 1st, you say it's going to go active on the 5th, and then things get delayed. You can go in and change it to
Yeah.
the 10th or the 15th, but you can't go past that 30 days.
But you can't,
Okay.
but with the exclusive, you can advertise it within your office.
Right.
So
Right,
you-
it's
you
an
might
office
still be able to
exclusive.
get the thing sold for
And you
them.
can show it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only beauty to the full notice, that you can just work your tail off networking and to get it sold. You can't have a sign in the yard, but on the coming soon, you can't really do much of anything. It's just other than put it in the MLS.
You get the house ready, that's the
Right.
whole point, is
Yeah.
just to, just get.
Right.
it.
May
Right.
not
It's
even
to
be
re-
because of the house, it's just
Right.
because of their schedule, or they're gonna be having surgery.
And that's a good point. It's
Won't
not,
be better for 2 weeks or so, their recovery period. They won't be in their house. or
it's not
whatever.
used to be a hip pocket listing. It's there because you want to protect your business and get the seller's signature and getting it ready for market. It's not meant to be hoarding your listings.
Right.
Mhm.
Because the idea is to get it out there, get it sold.
Right.
Any other questions?
So when you're putting that coming soon in, you're putting everything in just because it's going to be ready to trip on that 31st day, period.
No,
putting-
you can put,
Yeah, just limited amount.
you can put limited amount. My advice would be, if it was me, I would put in as much as I can to make it look as good as you can to the other agents that are looking at the coming soons.
Yeah.
So people got different theories on that. My theory personally is I would have my listing filled out complete. And then when it trips that over, you're ready to
It's
go.
the same required fields
Mhm.
No.
isn't it? Isn't it the same required
I think
fields?
they changed it.
We
so
did
you don't
change
have
it.
to put as many
It-
in there.
So I guess when you're going through Paragon, if it's not going to let you finish if you haven't done the required fields, it may have, when you're doing it as a coming soon, it's going to tell you whether you've done enough or not, I guess. I don't do it myself. I pay someone.
All right. I didn't mean to trip completely across that, but that's,
Good question.
Oh, and we also
That was-
allow, because some fields are required and you may not have the information, we allow it to be like, you can put a 0 in there and the data checker won't flag you
Yeah.
for that, so. On the coming soon.
Any other questions?
no, that really answered what I had.
Anything on the contract? If you guys ever want to just talk about it, Kathy can provide mine and Randy's cell numbers. You can call us at any time. So at this point, we'll turn that over to Randy, and he's going to talk about selling the house now on your residential Car 100 sales contract.
Everybody have that in front of them. Wish I could see you while we're talking here, but
Right, we couldn't get that going.
all we can do is see the form, so I can't see your faces, see if you're yawning, see if you're, see what you're doing there, but just holler out whenever you can. This is probably has a lot of the same ingredients as your contract, maybe laid out a little differently, maybe tweaked a little different here or there, but we'll go through it together. One of the things that I think is important with this contract is the very top, which we kind of breeze over, where it says this form of agreement was, when filled in and executed by both buyer and seller, is intended to become a binding real estate contract, and the parties may wish to seek legal counsel. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to give you the general understanding of each of these paragraphs here, but just know that if we had, I don't know, how many do we have here today between everybody, maybe 12, 15 of us. If it was 12 or 15 attorneys, every one of these paragraphs would mean something else.
Right. And we are not attorneys.
We are not
right?
attorneys, nor do we play one on TV. But the general understanding, the intent of the committee who put these together, that submitted them to the attorneys for review that represent our association, that's what we're going to talk about today. Is it possible that an attorney could rip apart every aspect of it? Yeah, that's how they make a living.
And you might want to mention too that, I mean, it is the members that are coming up with a lot of this,
Yes.
the terms in the contracts and all of our forms. If things are not working, somebody might submit a question or a problem and, the committee reviews it, but every single contract form is reviewed by our attorney. Even if we change one letter, one word, it has to go to the attorney for review.
Right. Yeah, and what Nick said earlier, if there's something, as you begin to use these and you see something that just isn't making sense, ask questions, or if you have a suggestion on how to make it better. Our forms committee is it's the most active committee in our entire association, next to probably the board, but maybe more. So they are open to learning from you and your experience and trying to figure out how to make this the best possible contract that we can use for ourselves as well as our clients. So let's just jump in. A lot of the basic information in line 1, who's the seller, what's their mailing address, who's the buyer, what's their mailing address. The only thing I would say here is use the full names if you have them. The best you can, because the title company is going to get a copy of this, as you know. They're going to, the lender's going to get a copy of this. Everybody's going to get a copy. And if you have full names, and I always encourage buyers, is how did you fill out your loan application? Okay, that's how we're going to spell this then, and that just helps so that you're not having to amend these throughout the process. It's not a perfect science, but it helps. So contract to purchase the real estate, you put the address there. Line 8, you're going to put the tax ID number, the parcel number there. Number 9, we are actually changing that. You're going to see that one go away. None of us have the full legal description at the time that we're making these offers. We have an abbreviated one, and we have been advised that legally that's probably best that we don't do that. It doesn't give a full description. It gives a partial one, and it's just not a good idea. So we're going to just have the tax ID number on our purchase contracts in the coming future here very soon. All right, so we talked about what stays, what goes in the listing contract. Here it is on the buyer's side from 12 to 15 here. It talks about, everything that is shades, rods, blinds, permanently attached floor coverings, attached fireplace equipment, including fireplace doors, blowers, gas logs and grates, ceiling fans, garage door openers and controls, built-in permanently attached kitchen appliances, sump pumps and backup sump pump systems, light fixtures and other fixtures and equipment attached to and properly belonging to said real estate, together with the following personal property. So we don't have to write in everything. We don't have to write in every ceiling fan, everything there. But if you do expect a refrigerator, the range oven, unless it's a built-in wall oven, it's not a permanently attached kitchen fixture. So you need to write that in, if the washer and dryer. I don't know how things are in your area. This is not a good place to put the lawnmower and things like that. Our appraisers hate that here. They don't want to see that. If you have a personal property addendum in your particular office, I would use that for those kind of things. But anything having to do with the home, the functionality of the home, this is where you would put that when you're making your wish list here in your offer to the seller. The next part of this is important. So line 19, which shall be left in and upon said premises exactly as it is at the time of the contract acceptance. That's important. I'm sure you're in the business long enough. You've heard of the shysters who will replace the refrigerator with a refrigerator, because we didn't put a serial number or a model number on here. We just said a refrigerator. This says no, the one that was there when they wrote the contract and at the time of the contract acceptance. So we don't have to get that specific. The above items listed herein are considered part of the real estate and have no separate or intrinsic value. That was added language for the appraisers, even though they still will balk at it sometimes. That's what that line is about. The next section, line 22 through 25, just says, hey, this contract is used for the purchase of a lot of different residential properties and there's going to be different ingredients that might apply to one transaction that don't apply to another. If a particular paragraph is not checked off, if the box is not checked, that means that that paragraph has nothing to do with this particular offer. Okay, so you don't need to go through and scratch out or X through. That actually is also, our attorneys have told us it's not a good thing to do. Instead, it's better to have the fact that you have not checked off, so you don't need to there. Then we jump right into the guts of it. So your offer, number one, your price and your earnest money terms. Your purchase price, you're going to offer $10 for the house. Line 29, you're going to, line 29 through 31, you're both going to say how much earnest money you're putting down and the form of which it's going to come. Is it going to be cash, personal check, cashier's check, or you know, tiddlywinks, whatever it is? That's where you're going to write that in there. And then we've added line 32 through 36 in the last year, just to give some teeth to this for a seller. This says how long the buyer has to actually get the earnest money to the seller or to the seller's representative. And if they don't do it within the time frame that's specified here, there is some recourse for the seller that they can, it's their option to cancel this contract. Okay. Paragraph 2, cancellation of prior real estate contract. If they had another offer that they're getting out of, they're making an offer on us, but they're fighting in another deal, they want to try to get out of that, they're going to let us know that, hey, this contract, if accepted, only kicks in if we can get out of this other deal by this specific date. That's a rarely used contract, paragraph, but it's there. Number 3, confirmation of dual agency. As Nick went over, your seller has already, you should have had, if you're on both sides of this anyway, your seller should have already agreed to that or not agreed to that in the listing contract. So they've already previously consented to dual agency. This is where everyone's going to once again say, hey, yes, I have previously consented. So this does not take the place of a dual agency notice. You need to have had that filled out already with your buyer. This just is the buyer saying that they confirm they have previously consented to Randy Aldrich, whoever, fill in the blank, acting as a dual agent, and that they're acknowledging again here so that all parties know that, hey, it's okay for Randy to be a dual agent. Okay, but you have to have had that filled out ahead of time. The listing agreement already has that full dual agency disclosure form in it. You need to have your buyer fill that out prior to writing the offer. Let's go to paragraph 4. The appraisal provision. Everyone's familiar with appraisals. This paragraph basically just says it needs to appraise at 100% of the agreed upon purchase price. Otherwise, the buyer is no longer obligated to it. Buyer and seller can always renegotiate. That is always an option. It's not an automatic cancellation of the deal, but it gives the buyer the ability to walk away if the seller won't or can't accommodate the new price. Okay. 5, paragraph 5 is, or section 5, I guess we call it, is a lengthy one here, but it goes through how do we plan to pay for this? We're offering you $10 for the house. How do we plan to pay for it? We've got the option of cash. Now we have in here that there's a verification of the funds within so many days, because that's as important as getting a loan approval letter. Somebody can say they have cash. We need to see that. And the other thing is that will differentiate it from someone saying, yeah, we have cash, but it's coming from the proceeds of our house. Well, that's not a cash deal. And we're going to get into that a little later down the page here. But this is just cash. This is liquid cash. I have this in my account, and they can get they don't have to submit their bank statement. That's not everybody's business, but they do have to get something maybe from a personal banker at their bank that says, you know, Susie Q has the funds to purchase the home at 123 Main Street for $10, readily available at any time, however they want to word it. That's what verification of cash is. Under B, we would put what kind of financing we're getting, you know, whether it's VA, FHA, rural, whatever, or other. We have a an area in there for other, if they're getting some other kind of financing, maybe they're getting it through a insurance company. There's some odd things out there that aren't real common, but we have a place for other there. In respect to those, whichever financing option that they've chose, the buyer in B1 says that they'll choose a lender and make written loan application within 5 calendar days following the contract acceptance of this offer. And you have a place there, within so many calendar days following the acceptance date. If number of days is not inserted, then 10 calendar days after acceptance date shall apply. Buyer shall provide written evidence to seller from buyer's licensed lending institution confirming that the buyer has the ability to secure a loan for the real estate. This is a loan approval letter, the problem is, and I know that this is a tough paragraph here, because what this is in essence is a pre-approval letter. But if they haven't got their ducks in a row and they're making the offer, this is just saying to your seller, this is how long it's going to take for us to get our ducks in a row. But if they're not giving you a notice from a licensed lending institution confirming already at the time of the offer that the buyer has the ability to secure a loan, this just spells out how quickly they'll get their ducks in a row. Okay. Just know that when you're reading that, if you haven't received an approval letter already, that you're asking your seller to consider an offer that may or may not happen. So they're going to be held hostage a little while there, but not unknowingly. They're letting it be known right here. And it goes into the other stipulations of what happens if the buyer is unable to get the financing, but they've already given you the earnest money that says you'll release that. Or let's say the buyer's financing falls through. B covers that. If they have their approval letter, everything's happened. I think right now during this COVID thing, probably very few of us have not been affected with approval of financing being affected by this, either on one side or the other of a transaction where a buyer had full approval and had no idea they were going to be furloughed or laid off, but it's happened because of this. They lose their financing. This just states that, hey, they can't be held to this contract and they should get their earnest money back. So under 2 there, this is important. We added this, I don't know, a few years ago, but it's important. And it goes back to the cash thing. So B2, if you're not with me, it's on line 84. We are requiring buyers to say the buyer does or does not own real estate. And then if they do own real estate, they have to continue on line 86, buyer's ability to obtain financing. Notice we didn't say a loan, but just obtain financing under paragraph B is or is not contingent on the sale and closing of the buyer's real estate. It could be a loan or it could be cash. So a buyer has to say, yes, my financing is or is not, I own real estate already, and many buyers do, they might own tons of real estate, but this particular purchase is not contingent upon me selling any other piece of property, and they need to specify that. And this is where it clarifies to that buyer, if we're working well with our buyers as agents and we're explaining to them, I know you think you're a cash buyer because you're planning to take the proceeds of this to buy that. That is not cash. So we need to let the seller know where your money's coming from. And so that might go back to other up there. Proceeds of the sale of a home, and then you're going to need to spell that out. Now, if you do mark this, if the buyer does say that, yes, I own real estate, and yes, it is contingent on the sale of another piece of real estate, we have a couple more forms. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that today, but there's a couple other forms. We have a sale contingency and a closing contingency form. The sale contingency form that we have, and again, I'm happy to go over that with you at another time, basically says, hey, we don't even have our house on the market yet, or we have it on the market, but we don't have a buyer yet. So we would like to buy this house contingent upon the sale of our house. And here we are in the process. And we've got it listed, all these things. We give a lot of details about the home on there. The other one says, this offer is contingent on the sale and closing of our real estate. It's already under contract. We're closing on such and such a date. that might give your seller a few more warm and fuzzies on the situation. I know right now in a hot market, contingencies aren't real popular and or necessary too much, but you might consider them still. And if they're bringing you a contingent on the closing of their property, that means a lot of things are already in place, and it's more of a sure thing, although nothing is a sure thing. So there's a separate form to be filled out and to present to the seller with your offer if you're going to say that it is contingent on the sale or closing of another property. There's one of two forms to fill out on that. We're not even going to mess with C, a contract for deed. In another market, we might spend more time on that, but you can read through that if you'd like. Number 6 just says, if you are, this is on line 108, if you are doing a 1031 like-kind exchange, either of the parties, that you will cooperate with the other party in this transaction. 7 is the closing and possession. This contract shall be closed on or before, and you put in the date, your wish list. Remember, this is your offer. This is the wish list. All of this can be negotiated, but your closing date of December 31st, 2020, possession shall be at the time of closing. That's assumed by this contract, unless you fill something in the following line, or on such and such a date.
Hush.
Are you telling me to hush or the dog? This is also where it spells something out here, very important. Seller agrees, and we put this in big bold black here. Seller agrees to leave the real estate in broom clean condition and free of debris. All debris and personal property that is not to be conveyed to buyer shall be
Hush.
at the seller's expense before possession. Buyer shall have the right to inspect the real estate fixtures and personal property prior to possession to verify that the real estate improvements and included personal property are in substantially the same condition as of the date of the acceptance of this contract, normal wear and tear accepted. So that's an important part. A lot of people write that stuff in. It doesn't need to be written in. It's there in the contract here, at least in this particular contract. So that spells that out. If it wasn't on page 1 under lines 16 through 18, personal property added in there, then it needs to be gone from the property, as well as in broom swept condition. We all know that's a little subjective. Depends on your broom, how far apart the little thingies are. But yeah, how well that's done. But that's the intent. Section 8 covers prorations, including taxes, rents, leases, things like that. Any kind of assessments on the property covers that. 9, at the closing, just says that the conveyance will be done with a warranty deed or whatever applicable deed that needs to be used on this property. 10 just covers title evidence. The seller, it's customary as well as contractual. The seller will choose the title company to do the search, and that doesn't keep that from being negotiated. I know in some instances with foreclosures and things, that's a negotiated thing, and the buyer pays for all that. In this case, the seller, in our normal arm's length transactions, this is how it's, the ingredients are here, how that's taken care of. 11, line 155 talks about how if prior to closing the improvements on the real estate are destroyed or materially damaged by fire or other casualty, buyer shall have the option of declaring this contract void by delivery of a written termination notice to the seller, and we have a specific form mentioned there for that, or of accepting the real estate as damaged or destroyed together with the proceeds of any insurance payable as a result of such destruction or damage, which proceeds the seller agrees to assign to the buyer. That is actually a paragraph under review right now, I'll just tell you. That gets a little crazy. But this basically tells your buyer they're not obligated to buy this unless the seller is willing to make the house whole again. I can tell you that the part about the insurance claim and signing that over to someone else, I know it says that here, that's not always as easily done as you'd like, and it does not include any deductible. If you buy one of my homes, I'm pretty much self-insured up to about $5,000. That's my deductible. So if you'd like that new roof, I'll give you all the proceeds, but it's going to be shy of about $5,000. See what I mean? It's not all, it doesn't spell everything out. So in this instant, if something happens, if you're representing a buyer and a casualty, a tornado, a fire, something major happens, you want to make sure that if your buyer has agreed upon accepting the proceeds of any claim, you want to know what the deductible, you want to make sure your buyer is going to be whole in this. So that's under review and going to be beefed up a little bit, but just maybe something you haven't thought about before, but we probably all have stories, so don't have time for all those, but guard your buyer, there's all I'll say. 12, the performance, obviously, specific performance is a term we're familiar with from our classes in real estate. This is a highly enforceable contract, binding on both parties and their heirs. Very important to go over that with both buyers and sellers when you go over this purchase contract. 13 just gives the escrowee their direction on how to handle the earnest money and the disbursement of that at the proper time. 14, if you're asking for a home warranty, this is where you would put in both I'd say, I'll just use HWA because I happen to know they have a diamond package. So you would write, seller shall provide at no expense to buyer a diamond and then home warranty package at a cost not to exceed. And then I would look at the catalog or whatever from HWA and find out the amount of what I'm asking for my client, and then put in the company name there. And that's to be delivered fully paid at closing. Again, this is your wish list. So it's whatever you're asking for. It can be negotiated. 15, property condition. Again, I just stress to sellers, it's your house all the way up to closing. Take care of it. If something happens, you got to fix it. You got to disclose it or you got to fix it. And if you're going to disclose it, they're going to want it fixed. Just fix it. Get it fixed. Get it fixed right. But this covers some information there. It's good to look at. General conditions and stipulations. Again, time is of the essence. So when we put timeframes in here, they mean something. They're not suggestions. They are binding, just like the rest of the contract. The warranties and agreements contained in here shall extend to and be obligated to heirs and executors. C, seller warrants that sellers receive no notice of violation of local, state, or federal laws or regulations pertaining to this property, which violation has not been corrected. Where have you seen that? That's also in the residential real property disclosure. So is the next line here, just saying the undersigned acknowledge, this is 213, that it's illegal to refuse to sell real estate because of race, color, religion, sex, ancestry, all the categories there. So there's no discriminating. That's just a reminder to both parties. We are on page 5 now. At the top, 218. This contract contains all the terms. So if you have talked about some things between buyer and seller, but they're not in writing, they're not a part of this contract. At least they're really very difficult to prove and to get a judge to side with you on. They need to be put in writing, and if they need to be amended, if they have been amended, they need to be amended in writing as well. This is an important one. On F, we added this, even though it's on our MLS sheets as well. It's just, hey, buyer, you're aware that any reference to square footage here is a approximation. It's not an exact thing. G, buyers advised to review basically the title search. Look it over. Have an attorney look it over. Have their Uncle Joe look it over. Whoever they're comfortable with, have them look it over. And H, if there's any conflict between the terms of this contract and the terms of any addendum to this contract, such conflict shall be resolved in favor of the terms of the addendum. The reason for that is this will be dated, say today. You might make some changes between now and then. It's whichever one is dated later, and as the addendum to this is the one that will have, it'll trump the other part of the contract. 17 says calendar days. I know this might be a little confusing when we talk about the MLS rules. We talk about business days as it pertains to the purchase contract and any repairs and inspections and all that. We're talking about actual calendar days. We don't get into trying to figure out if Kashmir Pulaski is a day that is recognized or not. It's just everything is a calendar day. I don't know if that's my car. Is it not?
No, it's over
Good.
by the.
You guys may not be able to hear that. We're hearing a car horn beeping right outside our window here. Kind of obnoxious.
Gee. Oh, I guess I wondered if it was mine.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
It's next door.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Line 229, section 18, just, it basically just says you can, any kind of digital form of this contract can be used. You can send it a PDF, you can do fax, you can do a personal delivery, you can do carrier pigeon, just about everything is legal and binding today. 19, all notices are in writing and shall be served by one party or their agent. So if I submit something to Nick, it's as if his seller has received it. If he submits it to me, it's as if my buyer has received it. So notice is we are the conduit for that. And so that's just important to know. That's why as agents, we also need to make sure we're being very careful with timing. We don't like it that our lives are sometimes dictated by these terms and contracts, but we can't just sit on something. We have to make sure our buyer seller knows that we've received this notice. It's not always convenient, but we need to do it because they were put on notice when we were put on notice. The statutory disclosures, you're going to mark which ones you have received at the time of the offer. Sometimes you don't have the others. You don't have the disclosures at the time you make the offer, so don't mark that. Or mark it that you have not received it yet. You'll definitely want to get those as quickly as possible. But if you don't have them and you want to get your offer in, get it in. If there's any other on page, I guess it'd be page 5 under 21, if there is, it says if there's any other addendas that need to be added to this contract, you'll have some options on the top of the next page from 273 through 280. But if there's something not listed there, then you would go back to 264 to 271 and you would write that in there. Okay. If there's something, maybe a personal property addendum or anything else that you're going to add to this contract, that would be the place to add it right there. Otherwise, you do have the options starting with line 273 through 280 to mark off the things that are a part of this. Okay. These are the other forms that we'd be happy to go through at another time. And there's actually a lot of good information. Those are some pretty good forms. Far from perfect, but some pretty good forms to familiarize yourself with. 281 just says, hey, this is not an open-ended contract unless you want to make it that. I guess you could write that in, but this contract, this offer is good until such and such a time. The buyer will sign and date. And then we have the counteroffer box there, or the box below that for the seller's response under 285. It'd be, I guess, it's kind of doesn't have a line, does it? It's between 285 and 286. The seller can accept the offer, just check that box, put the date, and they're going to sign below, or they can counter it. Now, if you are comfortable countering verbally, that's fine. We also have a counter offer page where you can actually put everything in writing each time. Each counter can go back and forth. We have an addendum for that. You do what you're comfortable with, what your broker wants you to do, what your buyer seller direct you to do. But once it is agreed upon, this is where you would add it back to this page, and you would put, hey, we countered on such and such a day. The closing date was the only thing we countered. So you write that in. You don't have to put everything in here that didn't change. This is only where you put the changes. And maybe it's just other. I had one where the seller they didn't have any notice, but they wanted to make sure the buyer knew that they were going to get to come back in the fall or whenever it was that was the right time to prune roses, to come back and get a start from that rose bush, because that's been in their family for 3 generations and something to that effect. Well, that was written right in here. So you've all got stories like that. If there's some kind of a personal property the seller is going to retain, they would write that in there if they can name what it is. They'll put that in there. Maybe it is making it very clear, hey, the Nest thermostat stays, the TV brackets they go with me. This is where we're retaining these items. These do not get conveyed with the real estate. And then the seller would sign below that. Once that's done, then the buyer has to re-sign down below between 286 through 288. Below that is where we record who the escrowee is, when the earnest money was received, and that. At the bottom of page 6, let's say you got a offer that your seller does not wish to accept or even counter. It's just they've been insulted too greatly. You can't get them to even counter. Then this is where the seller would sign, and you could present that back to the buyer. The next page is office information, very helpful. This is not something that the buyer or seller need to sign. This is just for us to be able to present to the title company, the lender, each other, so we all know who the players are in this, and we can stay as organized as possible and have all the information in one location. So that was quick and wordy, but questions?
Put the screen back on.
Yeah. And did you guys all leave? We don't have your face on. You might be muted as well.
They're asleep now.
Any questions on the purchase contract?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. My question is, I believe on page 4, paragraph 7, overall, your contract to purchase is real similar to what we've always used, just laid out a little bit differently. But it's under the condition, and yours states that the property at closing shall be the same condition as when they looked at it initially, but I didn't see anything in there unless I missed it pertaining to things being in working order, date of possession. So is that not included in yours, or?
Well, it would say, what it says, and if you go to number 7 there, go to line 116, buyers shall have the right to inspect the real estate, fixtures, and personal property prior to possession to verify that the real estate improvements and included personal property are in substantially the same condition as of the date of acceptance of this contract, normal wear and tear expected. So I would say that would fall into that they would have the ability to make sure the refrigerator works. Make sure, if you want to run the dishwasher, run the dishwasher. We've all had weird things happen. They're mechanical things and they can break. It's not always the seller trying to pull a fast one. It's just they moved out a week ago and they didn't know that broke. So, yeah.
Our state that they have to be in working order, date of possession. And when we go back through for the final walkthrough, we verify that the range, the refrigerator, those things are in working order. But I didn't see that this one says that they need to be in working order. So given a buyer may not know because they don't try the range and the dishwasher and all those things when they're initially viewing the property. So they may or may not have been in working order at that time. So when it says same condition as then, is that just left open or?
Well, I guess that would be covered by a home inspection. And if they're buying it as is, let's just say they're doing a buying as is, our as is addendum, which again, we don't have time to jump into today, would state on there that the buyer is fully aware of the condition of everything being conveyed in the property at the time of the offer. So then this final walkthrough, if they were aware when they signed that refrigerator was working and now it's not, we could go back to the seller and say, hey, this worked fine before, but now it's not.
I think line 118, substantially the same condition as the date of acceptance of the contract. So I would think that when you went and we'll use the refrigerator, you open the door and it was running or cool, and you go for your walkthrough the day before and it's not, well, it's not substantially the same condition. And we've all had that experience. So I think it's the same thing, just worded a little different. Does that make sense to you?
I understand what you're saying. It just, some buyers don't have a property inspection done, so that may not be determined at that point. And I just, like I said, what we're used to is that it's stating that those things will be in working order, date of possession. And this just says the same. So I just wondered how you worked around that. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what, we can make that suggestion to the Forms Committee too, to maybe include that verbiage.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Any criticisms? No, I don't want
No, we don't do that.
those. Yeah. All right.
At another time, when you guys get a little bit more familiar with this, we should get back together and maybe talk about some of the addendums, whether it be an inspection, repair. I think it'd be a good, you can only have so much information one day. We've been here an hour and 45 minutes, so I'm sure on overload right now, but we can just kind of tag it on as much as you guys want, little at a time. So.
You gonna put together a package of all the contracts and addendas for each office?
Everybody has access already online.
It's on the line.
And
Okay.
everybody that Bob gave you the names for, you should have received a welcome packet. And in there is your username and password. And we went ahead and set those up. So now you have access today, or actually it's the beginning of the month, where you can do it online, print, view any of those contracts.
I'd just like to say something. As I've been a member of the board here for most of my time as being a realtor for the last couple of decades, and as well as many committees. And I guess I want to say welcome to you guys. I also want to tell you that there is not an air of us thinking that you're the stepchildren over there in Logan County. Never feel that way. You're our peers. You are our equals. And we covet your thoughts and your input, and it's very important to us. Markets are very specific, and how we do things in our area versus how you do it in your area doesn't make one area preeminent over the other. It's just some differences. And we would really like to be as accommodating to you as we can. And we do really welcome your input. So don't be afraid of that. We're all in this together. We're all equals. Yeah, I don't know if that made
We're all
sense.
stronger together.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
all of us.
I'd just be curious, how does our contract look to you compared to your contract? I know Seth has brought me a contract here not too long ago, and I thought, right, it seemed different to me, but
Well,
Just-
ours is a little shorter. It's a little more concise.
yeah.
I can't remember. Is it 4 pages?
Maybe 3.
No, I think it's, I
Four.
think it's just contract.
Four.
4 pages. But our print is also smaller.
It is.
So
That could be it.
we have done that because we didn't like lots of pages, and we,
And we made ours bolder.
yeah. So I don't really know that there's, the way it's set up is
Yeah.
what's.
At the end of the day, this is what I'll give you, and this is what I accept, and here's what we're going to close. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same.
Yeah,
Same
there's
ingredients.
I didn't see hardly anything
Good.
that's really.
And you really never know the contract till you use the contract. We can sit here and go over it for 3 days, but until you actually use it or you get a hiccup, then you really know that paragraph.
Yeah.
So, but we're here. If you guys got a question at any time, you can call any of us, and we can walk you right through the contract.
I'd also like to welcome Diane Schreiber, who will be joining us on the board of directors. Brady
Awesome.
is also on the board.
Yeah.
We think it's really important to have that liaison connection there to the Lincoln area for the differences, if nothing else. If your perspective, I think, is going to be very, very helpful. And please speak up on the board because we treasure your opinion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So all of you in Logan County, if you have any problems at all, you got to talk to Diane. It's all on
I
her.
like that. Yeah.
Hey, Randy.
Yeah.
Bob's phone number.
Randy, this is Andy Meister.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
did you touch on, and I might have missed it, but did you touch on why the concession for buyer closing costs is on page 2? It seems,
No, you know what? I did skip that.
You
I'm
did.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But it's down there under the how do they plan to pay for this thing? And if part of their payment's going to include a seller concession, that is down there in lines 91 through 95. So if they're asking for a set amount for closing costs, that would go in line 92 there where it says
Ours is right up with
check that box and
So you
put
can see
$2,000 for
what
that.
we're talking about.
As far as its location, I don't think any thought was put into it other than it's right there on how they plan to pay. So-
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if it was just our, my unfamiliarity with it, but, that's a pretty important aspect to the contract. And so,
We kept it all with the financing, actually, is why it's there.
Yeah,
It's with the method of payment and financing is all kind of globbed in there on page 2 together.
yeah. I think they're all important ingredients. Just cram them all on page 1. But
yeah,
that's,
no, appreciate it.
yeah. And it's got also an option to put a percentage. I'm not a big fan of that. When I'm representing a seller and someone wants a percentage, I'm like, well, what's it going to be? What's the cap here? What's our amount?
Does yours guys also include the prepaid expenses, any inspection service? That's been kind of a sticky.
We don't have including any inspection, but we do have closing
Right,
costs
so
and prepaids.
get familiar with that because they can kind of get that in there. That's been a hot button of discussion before,
Yeah. Otherwise,
using
it's
inspections for
anyone's
closing
definition of
costs.
what is a closing cost,
Mhm.
and then who's right, who's wrong. So we just put it in there. Hey, this amount, seller, is what they're asking for, and it can go toward all these things. I try to just get my sellers not to get too caught up in what that's going toward. What's the net? Are you happy with the net here?
Mhm.
If it was a $10 offer and they want 10 cents back toward their closing costs, prepaids, groceries, whatever it is they want. If you're willing to accept $9.90 as your net, why do you care what the rest is?
You
Don't
can
get too
actually,
caught up.
under that prepaid expenses, you can actually have first year's homeowner's insurance
Yeah.
as a closing cost prepaid expense.
Yeah, that varies from lender to lender. So it's not even always us that gets to
Yeah.
decide what's a closing cost. So
Any other questions?
thank you.
I've got a quick question. Until I read through all the bylaws and everything, regulations, what is the definition of co-op commission? What is the definition on net sales price and gross sales price? What can be considered on your end within your rules and regs?
Contract.
Is
Are
it in
you
the contract?
The commission's-
I'm talking about the contract to purchase for residential, no, excuse me, the listing contract.
Whether if you are,
paying commission on the growth. of the net.
right, that is a
Are you
good,
talking about net after a seller's concessions?
Yes.
Because that is very
Talking about what
negotiable.
the definition is in your guidelines.
Yeah.
Kathy, you got that? I mean, we've had that in regional, and just using it as an example of
We put it in MLS.
did you? If the
we
house
put-
sold
we
for
put a
100,000 and they gave 5,000 in seller concessions, is the seller paying commission on 95 or 100?
We use a statement a lot, commission based on selling price minus any seller concessions.
Right.
I personally
Write that
think
in
that's
a lot.
very fair.
I do too.
Matter of fact, Nick and I were from different offices, although we started together. He knows when he's doing a deal with me, even though our contract doesn't say it, that if his buyer is asking for $5,000 of closing costs, that he's not going to ask my seller to pay a commission on that, and I'm not going. But we kind of have that understanding between us, and many of us do. But it isn't a negotiable thing. But according to our listing agreement, it is right now. This is a good thought, though. It is based on the gross.
Well, ours is too, but on the MLS sheet where you can put in confidential remarks, more times than not, you'll see that statement that I just said.
Except that the MLS agreement is not a binding contract between the listing brokerage and the seller.
Right.
So it really needs to be on the listing form, an understanding there. Doesn't mean it can't be negotiated, but
Yeah, because we just consider that an agreement between.
Even though it's
Offices.
on, even though you might put it on the listing form, you do need to inform the buyer's agent.
Correct.
And that's where you get into it on the MLS
We
sheet,
inform.
is letting the buyer's
I
agent
see.
know
So you put that under co-op. Or
Well, we
commission?
have a spot for
Confidential
confidential remarks. See, I
Right.
haven't seen your MLS sheet. I mean, we've got Paragon, but they're different.
Yeah.
But we've got a spot for confidential remarks.
So what
Under
I have seen in
confidential
MLS
remarks,
Yeah. So what I have seen in other MLSs is that they have a definition of what net versus gross is. And normally what that means net is that closing cost, for instance, not home warranties or repairs.
normally.
Well, a net's a net. I mean, if you're
Right.
given 5,000 for closing costs of prepaid expenses, we'll just use the 100,000 as in a scenario, they're still only netting 95. So I don't see why the seller would want to pay commission. And it's really something that needs to be discussed. Either you have it in writing on your listing sheet or discuss at the time of the contract to the other agent.
Right.
Hey, by the way, my sellers are giving you 5,000 in concessions. We're not paying commission on that 5,000.
And the RMLS rules say commission may be paid on net sales price minus seller concessions, or on base price in new construction, provided a clear explanation is reflected in the agency remark.
Right. So back
In
to
the
that,
agency
you need
what? In the
it needs-
agency what?
remarks. I guess you could almost get in the habit of on every listing.
That's what we do.
Right, and that's a good one for all of us. And we have discussed this in regional.
Stop yawning, Seth.
And Kath, you want to answer that question?
Oh,
I was going to, but go ahead, yeah.
Oh,
We have access to the program.
Yeah.
We've got Randy, since you already know.
Well, no, it's just, yeah.
what question is it?
One final question, we'll have access to the program that you use for typing details in this contract.
Transaction desk.
Oh, they will have that.
And actually, do they have AuthentiSign?
Yeah, it's a core MLS
So-
It will.
So you will have, yes, the answer is yes, you'll have that. So in AuthentiSign, in the electronic signing portal, you'll have the ability to type something in that you can add to the contract. So you don't have to do it with your big pen.
Yeah, you can fill in all of our forms and contracts online and then have them electronically signed by your.
Do you guys have AuthentiSign now?
No.
What do you use for electronic? Oh, really? Okay.
And we will.
You'll
have-
love AuthentiSign.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
We will have training classes for all of the different
Really?
modules.
It's so nice.
AuthentiSign, the CMAs, all of those different modules that are part of the MLS services. We will have those separate classes. It won't be like one day of all classes, but it'll be.
And then we can even, if you want, send you some links to, there's a lot of, our vendors have really good training classes that you can sign up through them. I mean, like the whole month of December, they have like for AuthentiSign and Transaction Desk, where all of our forms and contracts can be filled out online and then signed electronically. They have training classes every single day of the week, including Saturday and Sunday. So I can get that information out. And,
We're not familiar with either one of those.
sign up for that.
Use DocuSign?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was on last night, you've got Transaction Desk and then you've got Dotloop. So I'm just asking, why are they both on?
Transaction desk.
Well,
Yeah.
Transaction Desk is a core MLS service. Dotloop is not, but it's a brokerage option. If your brokerage or an individual broker wants to use Dotloop, then we're going to, help you use that product. So.
Okay, all right.
We have a lot of agents in our market area that use .loop.
And DocuSign now too. A lot
Yeah.
of
Coldwell
Right.
Banker, I think, is using DocuSign.
That's what do you use?
What do I use? I use DocuSign.
DocSign.
Hey, and while I got you guys, the one thing I was going to say for those that from here that aren't familiar with your documents, I've used your contracts quite a bit. The inspected in I think are great because they've got a lot more verbiage and kind of outlines better for the buyers and sellers understanding of what they can request and can't request, how sellers need to make things accessible with the termite inspection and things like that. So I think those are going to be advantageous to the rest of the Logan County Board when they start using those. So.
Right.
Yeah, your seller will initial off on that if the inspector has to come back for any reason, it's on the seller to pay that reinspection fee for, like, they come back to do a termite inspection and the
Right.
seller has the freezer on top of the crawl space and the inspector won't move it. Well, you're going to move it, but Mr. Seller, you're going to pay to have that guy come back, and they're going to initial on that. So thank you, Seth. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
The other thing I like too is that it says that the sellers have to have all the utilities on. There's so many times here where our sellers don't activate them, and then it comes back and you've got to pay for a reinspection again. And so I think that's, like I said, there's a lot of good verbiage in there.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
A lot of discussions about those types
Yeah.
of things
Yeah.
in the meetings, in the forums meetings.
Anything
So
else?
what's the plan from today forward?
So the actual merger is effective January 4th because we have to wait until our documents could be filed with the state of Illinois. And once the corporate documents are filed on January 4th, it becomes effective. And then within the next few days after that, I will fill out the forms with NAR for the merger. And we are in the process right now of converting. So that's the association side of it. So you should have access to anything, any association products or services that our members have now through the association website. You've hopefully been to the member portal where you can see, I noticed that you added your picture. So that was kind of fun to see that you did that. And so you can add your picture to your portal or whatever you need to do. Pay bills. There's all kinds of things to, and included in the packet, I showed how step-by-step some of the important things, register for classes. And then for the MLS, Kathy's working on mapping the data. That's our next step that's part of it. That's a long process to map the data to see what fields are different that you have or that we have. So we have to map and everything has to fit together somehow. So Kathy's working on mapping the data for the different property types. And that's the first step in the MLS conversion. So hopefully it'll go smoothly because they're both from the same vendor, which is helpful. But again, each association has their own customized MLS. So it does take a little bit of time and it's still going to be a conversion. So once we get that done, you'll continue to use the MLS that you're familiar with and using now until we get closer into the transition of the complete, merger. And we're hoping to get that done as quickly as possible, but it's not really on our time frame. So we're about done with the mapping and then it's kind of up to Black Knight. We haven't received yet an exact timeline, but we are trying to get that done as quickly as possible.
So will you be, as of January then, communicating with all members or just managing brokers?
Well, everybody,
The timeline is.
everyone and all members received a welcome packet, not just the managing brokers, so that they can, start logging in, become familiar with the member portal, especially. Also included in that packet was a list of the staff that we have here and what our roles are. So I think that I thought that would be helpful for someone to know. Our members, Kathy and I have been here for at least 25 years each. So our members, for the most part, know us, know who to ask for, although they do get the Kathys confused. But other than that, between the two of us, we would take care of whoever with whatever they need. So we are going to be communicating with both the, the agents or the brokers and the managing brokers. We also have our member portal. We have the ability to provide dynamic notifications to specific groups. So I have set up a dynamic notification set up for the Logan County folks so that if we need to say something directly to just that group, say, hey, we have this training session. Not that we don't want to involve other members in the training, but right now if we're focusing on you, this is what we want you to be registered. We want this group to be, have the ability to register and not crowd the room with, individuals who have opportunities all along. So we will be reaching out to you. We have ability to send out mass emails through Constant Contact. Again, we have the member portal. We also have, once MLS gets going, we'll have MLS notifications through our MLS that we can also target just our our members and not, it wouldn't go to the people in Iowa or wherever. So we pretty much have a pretty good communication system going. And we hope that anyone who has questions, to please feel free to reach out to us. We've answered questions from anything was, what phone number do you think I should have for my office? When I'm making up one. I mean, anything. I mean,
I had one yesterday. They wanted to know if I could provide them a list of long-term care facilities. So I'm like, well, I don't really have that, but you know, like, well, could I call a realtor for that? I'm like, well, maybe, but I would maybe try Googling it first and Google long-term care facilities. So,
and our members are our priority. We do have non-members that reach out to us, but our members have to be our priority, and we do focus on responding to them and taking care of their needs. And not to say we don't help members of the public for whatever reason, but our members have to be our priority. We work for our members. We understand that. And so we appreciate our members.
All good? Any other questions at all?
No,
Here.
thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, guys.
And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Very much.
An excuse to do a little Christmas shopping.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nick. And,
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Nick and Randy volunteered their time to be with
Oh, no
us
problem.
today. So,
Yes, thank you.
Happy to do it again. Honestly, the inspection addendums and those they're actually in process right now too. They have been for quite a while, but those are some excellent forms.
Yeah.
There's no perfect form that can spell out every possible thing,
Yeah.
but
we talk about almost every possible.
we have worked hard on those.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't mean
Yeah,
you guys might, you know what
tweak
helps?
them a lot.
When you stare at the same thing forever,
Mhm.
you don't see the problem. Then you hand it to somebody else and they go, what about this? And then you guys look, you guys might help us. You might go, what about this? And we're like, we've been looking at it too long. Yeah, you're absolutely
Those are
right.
just
So
my notes that
honestly,
I wanted
we're
you
not
guys
afraid
to-
of hearing
I was just gonna give those to you if you wanted me to
because
put them away.
literally we've been
Okay.
working on those for quite a while.
That was
And
highlighted or that coming
they're
soon
decent forms,
Yeah.
but
can really
they're only
trip you
getting
up.
better.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I'll have to convey.
Because we all know inspections are the worst part of our job. And these really